Alrighty, welcome everybody. Today we are presenting Amirparsa Ghasemi. So Amirparsa began his college studies at York University in Toronto before transferring to the University of Maryland College Park. He worked as a summer intern through the CCSEP program at the National Institute of Dental and Craniofacial Research, Oral Immunity and Infection section in summer of 2023. He recently published a paper in the Journal of Advanced Prosthodontics. In addition to his ongoing research, he took the DAT exam in the summer of 2024, just before beginning his junior year, and scored 24 AA and 27 TS. He intends to apply for dental school during the 2025 application cycle. Everyone, please welcome Amirparsa.
Hello, guys. I'm so happy today to be here and presenting about DAT. Actually, it was my dream to be here when I was taking DAT in August. I was worried about how my score will affect this session if I were not scoring well, so this session would not have ever been happen. So I'm so happy to be here. I hope you guys can use that session and just get the confidence to start studying for DAT. I would say it's definitely not as hard as you think, because I was in your spot 6 months ago, and more than 6 months, 8 months ago, and now after taking DAT, I say definitely not as hard as I thought. Okay. Do you want to start, Matthew, or do you want wait for Jubin, or I can start?
Can you start, please? Yeah,
Sure.
thank you.
Just let me know that the slides are being shared.
All right, we can see it.
Good.
Yep, that looks good.
Just let me know if in the middle of presentation, if the sounds go bad or anything happened to the slides. Okay, let's get started. So today we're talking about DAT, the dental admission test. Just a quick note about me. I really don't want to talk about myself much. Just a quick overview. I'm a bio student at University of Maryland. I'm junior. I took my DAT in August, between my sophomore and junior year, so the summer in between, which I would talk about. That also went to take the DAT and that kind of stuff. I got 24. Was not surprised by that. I would tell why. 27 total sciences. I got 27 on biology, 24 on chemistry, 30 on organic chemistry, 23 on math, and 17 on reading. That's all about me. So basically, what you need to know about DAT, and maybe you know about it so far, is the dental admission test that you need to take for any dental school in US or Canada, with one or two few exceptions in US, which they do not require DAT, but basically you need DAT for any dental school you want to apply. It's a computer-based exam administered by Prometric Centers. So we have two kinds of DAT. We have American DAT and Canadian DAT that today I'm going to talk about the American one. It's pretty similar to Canadian one with a few differences. I would say American DAT is it's the exact same as Canadian, plus the organic chemistry and the math section. The rest of the things would be the same, but just keep in mind that I'm focusing on American DAT, but I would be more than happy to help you guys if you have any question about the Canadian DAT too. So I would focus mostly on what you might not be able to find on Google much. So I'm just going to give you a brief overview about what's DAT, and then we move on the tips and the things which would help you guys more. So the content for American DAT starts with the survey of natural selection, which goes for 90 minutes for 100 questions, which starts with biology, goes to general chemistry, and then organic chemistry. Then you have the perceptual ability section, which is nothing you've learned before. This is probably the newest thing that you will encounter. Then you have a 30 minutes optional break, which is not part of the exam. So you decide to take it or not, definitely take it. No question. Then you have the reading comprehension section. Um, and lastly, you have quantitative reasoning, which is basically, I would say, easy math. And then you have an optional survey, which is probably the most stressful survey that you will take in your life, because after you finish the survey, you'll see your score. That altogether take 5 hours and 15 minutes with 280 questions. The detailed content can be found in DAT candidate guide. I highly suggest to read off this guide entirely from the first page to the last page, from the top to the bottom. That's very important, very useful. So this is where you can find the info about the content. Um, I just put biology detailed content as an example. I just copy pasted the info from the guide. As you can see, for biology, there are lots of materials that you can find. It's basically what's covered in your first and second year of college. It might have some infos out of those years, but it's almost whatever you learned in the first and second year of your college. And the point about the content which I want to mention is the info is not equally distributed. It doesn't mean that you will see at least one question from each topic. You might not see any question from diversity of life. You might not see any question from circulatory system or respiratory system. And you might get 3 questions on reproductive system or anything you can imagine. You might get 10 genetics question out of the 40. You might get 5, you might get 2. And it really varies. And I talk to many people, and that's true. It's there is no trend on it, and you cannot understand what's gonna be on DAT biology or any other subject. So you have to read everything. The scoring is out of 30. The national average is 18, 19, something around that. But if you want to be competitive applicant, and if you want to have a high chance for most of the dental schools, for US, you need to have 20 or higher. But the scoring system will change in March 1st, 2025, and then that would be kind of similar like MCAT out of 600, different story. You can just go and read how would the system change on that time. You have to keep in mind that some schools have cutoff for their score. So no matter what is your score, if that's below, they would not see your application. I would say most don't, but some of them do. The cutoff is either for the academic average or it's for per each section. But as I said, it's for some of the schools, and the cutoffs is almost so low. Some of them are 15, some of them are 17, and few of them are 18. And as I said, an official score will be provided at the end of the exam. But still, in the new scoring system, you will not have that. And you have to wait for your score for about maybe, I think, 2 to 3 weeks to get your score back. The courses you need to take for DAT. So the point is you can take DAT at any time, but the courses that we suggest to take are general biology, which you take in your first year, general chemistry, and organic chemistry. These are the courses that you definitely need. Without those, you would really have a hard time to study them on your own. The other helpful courses are genetics, anatomy and physiology, microbiology, cell biology. You don't need calculus. You need basic understanding of math, and statistics would help. But for these courses, you're not really required to have them before taking the DAT. But once again, you can take DAT even at the first day of your college. There is no requirement for that, but these are just the suggestions. I'm trying to take this Yeah, the slide out of my head. Okay. Um, a big question. When should you take the DAT? Well, as I said, you can take DAT anytime. My suggestion is to do not take DAT during your semester at your college. Um, there is one question you have to answer in order to find out when you want to take the DAT. If you want to take a gap year or not. If you do not plan to take a gap year, there are two good options, which I really like the first one. The summer before your junior year, which is not common actually. Most of the applicants take DAT here, the summer before senior year, the summer that they are applying to dental school. But what I did was this. The good thing about taking it after your sophomore year is you have more flexible time. That allows you for 3 months of continuous study since you are not applying for dental school in that year. It gives you a room for retake, and you're not busy with dental school applications. The only bad thing about it is you might not be prepared as much, but I think you can get prepared by the 3 months. And you might not have taken organic or even general chemistry, then that's maybe is a deal breaker. If you have not taken the orgo, any of them, then probably you have to shift to plan B, which is the summer that you are applying. If you are taking a gap year, then that's completely different story. If you want to take 1 year as a gap, then the last semester you are in college, if you have a light course load, that would be a good option. And if you're taking more than 1 year gap, then you probably take DAT in the summer that you are applying, in any summer that you are applying to dental school. How to start and where to start. The very first thing is you have to decide when you want to take the DAT. After that, you decide when to take the DAT, start reading the dental admission test candidate guide to understand all the rules, because there are rules you need to know about how many times you can take the DAT, how much time do you have to wait for the retake, how does the reschedule work, what are the requirements, what is the DentaPin, what is the eligibility code, and lots of stuff which you can easily find on Google. After that, register for DAT, definitely in advance, definitely like 3 months in advance, because the earlier you register, the more desirable times that you are looking for are available for you. So you can decide when to take the DAT. And as I said, definitely before starting your semester, so you have more options to choose. Get the resources and start studying with the schedule. So the commitment is important here. A schedule is important, and the important resources that you need to have for DAT. Let me see if is there any question. You can put your question and I will respond for sure. So we have many resources nowadays for DAT, but the thing which I would definitely suggest as your main source and as your first source would definitely be either DAT Bootcamp or DAT Booster, which these are the memberships for the 90 days, and this is all you need for getting a good score on DAT. So I think there is no other resources you need. You definitely can add more supplements to it, other memberships, other books, but I think you need one of these at least as your main source. So there's a slight difference between the prices, but if that's not a deal breaker, I would say Bootcamp is probably a little bit better option for you. Two tips is you can get the 10% discount for either of those from their social media, from their Instagram. You might be able to find it, or if even you Google from the people who advertise them, you might be able to find a discount. And if you're eligible for DAT fee waiver, which is something that you can read off from the candidate guide and how you can apply for that. or if you have any financial aid grants that you've received, you might be able to just contact them and just lower the price and get a huger discount. So the other resources which you can add on these two, these are not, to the best of my knowledge, a good first resources. Is DAT Booster, the DAT prep book, which is definitely harder than actual DAT, and you have to be picky and you have to pick the questions that you feel could be asked on DAT, because some of the question in this book is very hard and it's not part of the DAT content. ADA offers some practice tests. ADA offers a old the complete exam, the full length exam, free on their website. It's for 2009 and 2007, which probably are not that useful anymore. You can use YouTube. It's free videos, most helpful probably for PAT. And you have some you have the K-Plan prep course or DAT booster crash courses, which those are helpful, but they're very expensive. And I would say just take those courses if you are short in time and if you don't know anything about bio or chemistries. So in the normal situation, in the normal case, I would not suggest those. One thing which I did actually, but it's not really required, is you can get both memberships, Bootcamp and Booster, and you can use Bootcamp as a main thing for yourself for your learning phase, and then use Booster as a supplement, and particularly for the practice test that you add on what you learn and you just examine what you learn. But that's an expensive thing. It's not really required. You can even ace DAT with one of those, but that's an option. If you can afford it, I definitely suggest that. So the question which comes up is, do we need the schedule? Do we need any schedule? Definitely you need to have a schedule. So you know when you want to finish stuff, when you want to start practicing, when you want to take the full length exam and get the scores to see how prepared you are. So definitely you need a schedule depending on which membership you get. If you're getting bootcamp, you can find easily the schedule. It has two different schedules depending on how much you want to study. For a normal person, for someone who has a normal and basic backgrounds in their first and second year of college, we suggest 2 to 3 months. I think about 3 months, but I followed the 77 days schedule. There's another one, 153. Same thing for booster. We have 8, 10, and 12 weeks. But if you're going with booster, 10-week schedule would be probably the best fit, and 77 for bootcamp is probably the best fit. So these schedules are designed to have two basic, very general phases. The first phase is the learning phase, which they provide you with different PDFs of their slides, their notes. So that's the reading phase. There are videos along with those readings, and the question banks, which are along with each chapter of each section you are studying for. So that's the learning phase. It's probably the first half of it, or probably the first month or two. And then that's the examination phase, which comes after, which are the practice tests, which are the most representative questions which you can find on Booster or Bootcamp, and the full length exams, which are consist of those practice tests all together, simulating the exam environment for you perfectly. So that's probably the best thing these memberships offers. The full length exam, even the phones of the questions are the exact same as what you see on DAT, everything similar. The tutorial is the same, the timing is the same, and that really prepares you for what you see on actual DAT, and I'll talk about it later. But keep in mind that you can adjust the schedule. I'll later talk about PAT section. You can add PAT questions daily if you need more time studying. For the reading section, you can add reading passages daily also, which they don't have. You can add review days, or if you're using Anki flashcard, you can add that also. So you can adjust it. Do not just 100% stick with the schedule, but use it as a main backbone of your studying. Let's start with the first section that you encounter, the section that I really loved while I was studying. I was ready for it. I knew it. I knew that I'm going to ace this section and I got 27. It's so easy. It's so easy if you bank on it and invest on it for a long time, and it will pay off. Definitely guarantee you it will pay off if you spend time. So the way I suggest you to start is to start watching the videos from either of those two memberships. Start taking the notes. That's probably one of the most important parts of the learning for this section, to take notes. Then you go and study the read. You go and read the high yield notes, which you can find in the bootcamp website. It's free, I think. It should be free. That's basically all the content in one PDF book format. I think it's around 100 pages, 150 pages. And that's all you need for DAT. But you can add the notes to that and just make yourself a very comprehensive PDF for all you need to know for biology. Because if you want to get back to what you learned in your courses, or if you want to use different resources, to my knowledge, in my opinion, that would make you confused because there are lots of material and you want to just focus and concentrate on one thing. Then you do the question banks, which are along with each chapter, or so there are two types of questions that, for example, Bootcamp or Booster offer. There are question banks plus BioBytes. So you do those. After you get with all the materials done, after you're done with everything, you start the practice test. This is the place that gives you an estimate score, same as what you encounter on DAT. So the practice tests are consist of all the topics, same as the actual DAT. There are 40 questions, same timing, and that really prepares you. So you do those after. You can add Anki flashcards. I didn't. To my not. I mean, in my opinion, it was time consuming, but lots of people here use them. Lots of DAT applicants use them. They all say it's useful. Sure, if you think it's useful for you, make the flashcards or use the prepared flashcards of Bootcamp or anyone else Google. You will find DAT biology flashcards and use them. But take every topic serious. Whatever is in high yield notes or whatever in the notes that Booster offers is important and can be a question on DAT. I would say the actual exam on this section is definitely more surface level and broader. So if you are becoming an expert in this section, in the membership you have, if you are doing well in the question banks, if you are getting a good practice score, should definitely be fine for the actual exam. What I did was I used bootcamp videos, then question banks, then practice tests. I also added booster tests, not the question banks anymore, the practice tests that booster offer in the final thing. And also I used the AT Destroyer. Few questions, you have to be selective for this book because some of the questions are clear that are not part of the AT. If you look at them, they're very complicated. They're very out of the content. So you have to be selective. But I used all of those. I think one of the most important thing is I just put a screenshot of one of the pages of the high yield notes, which you can see how I highlighted the stuff, added the notes. And this is what is important in biology section. So if you want to learn biology, that's the way you have to do it. You have to start writing down stuff. It's not just reading. One way of memorization is by writing down. So you have to dedicate at least 2 to 3 hours of studying per day for this section, I would say. What I did was I actually read the high yield notes, I think about 4 times in the entire 3 months that I studied for DAT. And one of the times was in the last 2 weeks, just like fast pace of skimming. And I think that really helped to review stuff. And I also redid the question banks in the last 2 weeks for this section. For the general chemistry section, I would say bootcamp videos are very useful. They are very representative of what you have to learn and what you will see on the actual DAT. Same process, you do the question bank, you take notes. I actually had made myself a notebook from the points I learned from each chapter, and that really was helpful for the last couple of weeks. So that really helped me to review stuff by skimming really fast, and that was really helpful. So take notes from the question, or even just write the entire question that you see in the question banks, or you see in any membership you're using, you see that question, you see the points. You got the question wrong, write down the entire question, write the explanation. That's part of the learning. Trust me, that really helps you. And eventually take the practice test. This is interesting. For general chemistry, people might just think some topics are not as important, but it's not how it works. For that section, you need to know everything, whatever the memberships provide you, just study them, learn them. Imagine, do you think like what is the cause of rotten eczema could be a DAT chemistry question? It could. So it's not about hard and complicated question. It's about how broad you've learned stuff, how much time you dedicated to learn everything which is covered in the DAT content. So it's not, let me tell you this, DAT is not the hard exam and tricky exam. It's the exam which examine how much you've dedicated time to study a big content. The hard thing about DAT is not being tricky or having hard question. It's about the content. It's about the volume of stuff that you have to learn. So same process, same thing for general chemistry. Study whatever those memberships offer you, whatever. So a question which people commonly ask me is how many calculation-based and how many theory-based question you had. I had 15 for each of those, but that still varies. You can get 20 calculation, 10 theory-based, or the other way also. So don't think about these kind of question much. Practice estimation and math calculations definitely for this section. So, and the actual DAT, as far as I know, for most of the Prometric Center, or maybe all of them, you'll be given a note board with markers and Sharpies, which are not as easy as pen or pencils to write on paper. So that's more time consuming. It gets more space. So it's not really easy. So practice to not use the the pen or pencil. So on the day of the AT, you're not using the Sharpies as much as you can. So you save the time there. So start practicing this so early. You can spend slightly more than 30 minutes. So you have 100 minutes for the survey of natural selection. You can save some time from biology and organic chemistry to add to this section, because you can move around between these the questions from biology to chemistries during that 100 minutes. So you can save more time. You can dedicate a bit more time than 30 minutes for this section. For organic chemistry, which I scored 30, which I was really surprised because I was averaging around 23 to 24 for that section. But let me tell you this here. The difference between 24 and 30 in DAT is probably sometimes 1 to 2 tests. It's not more than 1 to 2 questions. So if you're lucky, if you're very prepared, you can get 30 just by getting the last one question right. So if you got 24, you're just 2 questions further from 30. So that's the point. So I was averaging around that. The 30 just shocked me, but I knew that I was going to do good, but not this much. And the reason is just it's 1 question, the difference between 25 and 30. So it's the same process as the rest of the things. Watch the videos, take the notes, complete their corresponding question. Taking the note is very important for these sections. There are lots of memorization things. There are lots of tricks for the question, but after a while, if you do all the questions in bootcamp or booster or all together, you'll be getting the tricks. So there would not be any other tricks that you could see on the actual DAT. So if you do everything, if you learn every single question, I would guarantee you will not see anything unfamiliar on DAT. I'm thinking about my DAT exam. I did not see any question which I did not have any idea how to solve. I definitely had some questions that required me thinking, but none of the questions were tricky, and I was like, okay, I didn't know how to do this question. And the point was, I got over everything which was offered in bootcamp and booster. Then you can download the bootcamp. This is also free organic chemistry reaction summary sheet. This is all you need to know for the reactions. You might probably see 8 to 10 reaction questions in the actual DAT. So it's very important part. Look over it every day and start to just memorize 1 reaction, 2 reactions per day. I would say the reactions on actual DAT are not the most complicated reactions that this bootcamp reaction summary sheet will offer, but you couldn't risk. So you have to get you have to memorize like all the questions, all the reactions. So you have to save time from this section for bio and particularly general chemistry. This section would definitely be easy to finish in 20 to 25 minutes. So keep in mind that you have to probably save some time for it, for the rest, for the other parts. What I did for this part was the first thing, I had a strong background from Orgo 1 and Orgo 2 from my college. You might also have that. You might have a good background, which that really helps. I would say the bootcamp booster and the actual exam organic chemistry is definitely less tricky, less harder, easier than what you learn in your college. So that's a good advantage for you guys. I used booster for this part. For this section, booster, I think offered better more questions definitely that really helped me. I took notes from every single questions. And after a month of studying organic, I was like, I know everything, every trick. I still was getting some questions wrong, but I knew the tricks before. So that's something which make you confident and strong in this section. Made the notebooks from the points I learned, reviewed the reaction sheets many times, many times, and completed almost all the questions on bootcamp and booster. And the actual exam, as I said, I really felt way easier. And it was way more straightforward for me. The PAT section, the section which many students struggle, and I was struggling until maybe the last 3 weeks, but it is surprising and it is funny. But I remember a day which I started to do, for example, the keyhole or TFE, and I was like getting a very high score. People who studied chemistry have learned about the equivalence point, that you suddenly see a spike. I saw the spike in my performance in this section, and that's something you definitely see. But the point for this section is practicing so much. Don't stress about getting wrong answers at first. Becoming proficient in this section really takes time. Keep practicing. Learn the techniques for each part, for keyhole, TFE, angle ranking, and for the rest parts of this section. Learn the tricks. The tricks are really important, really useful, and they are offered in bootcamp and booster, and they're basically the same things that they offer. So the time for this section is very important, which I'll talk about on the next slide. And if you want to enjoy this section, just think about it as a game, and that would really help you more effectively learning this section. Reorganize the section. So the section starts from keyhole, go to TFE, then angle ranking, then hole punching, then cube counting, and the sixth part of this section is the pattern folding. So put the section where put the section which is your weakest section last. That really helps you to stay confident in the exam. So even if that section is not, if that's not your day on that section, on that part, hopefully that's the last part. so that doesn't harm the other parts. So reorganize the sections if you think your weakest section is something else. Mine was TFE, so I placed TFE from to the last. So I started from question 1 to 15, then I jumped to 31, go all the way to the end, then come back to 16, which was the TFE. Correct timing is a game changer for the actual exam. Practice this, practice the timing that you need to know. So the timer on the top right corner of the computer on DAT shows time from 60 minutes going to 0. So know that you have to move from keyhole to the next section at 50 minutes, 38. So you do not spend the time for other sections in the other part. Don't use the time for keyhole, for the cube counting, or the angle ranking for pattern for me. Dedicate each timing for each section. Use the previous section extra time to draw the grids and lines. You might not really understand this part, since grids and lines are some tricks that some techniques you need to use for some sections. For example, for the hole punching and cube counting, you need to draw some stuff on the whiteboard. So you can use the time from the survey of natural selection to draw this. This is the trick that I did. It really helped me. It saved at least, I would say, 2 to 3 minutes for me. So you can do that, because for the survey of natural selection, you definitely have more than enough time. For the reading comprehension section, which was hard for me, or the section that would be hard for any ESL students, it's hard. It's definitely hard, but I think a very long-term investment will pay off. I did not really spend much time on this section. I didn't like it. I slightly regret it, but that's fine. If you practice it, you'll get it at least the minimum score you need, 17, 18 for that section. There are various techniques offered. Choose the one that really works for you and practice that technique a lot. So I would not get too much deep for this part, but there are different techniques. There are lots of techniques. Search and destroy, vanilla, and reading the entire passage are the most famous ones. Search and destroy just says you go directly to the questions and then go back to the passage, find it. Vanilla says you go every 2 questions, go back to read 1 to 2 paragraphs, come back. You have to go and get the sense of the techniques and see which one works for you. Something that they told me, my friends told me that really helped them, is try enjoying the topic. I would say it's not really easy, but it's possible. Like, pretend you're enjoying the topic. That might help you a bit by understanding the passage a little bit more. That really helps you to answer the questions more effectively. For reading comprehension, time is very important, same as PAT. So practice to become fast. One annoying thing which you have to expect on Prometric Center is the lag, which you will see between the questions. It's annoying. I would say the 2 to 5 seconds lag, the computer gets completely white. I mean, the screen gets white. You don't see anything for 2 to 5 seconds, depending on the Prometric Center. Keep in mind for that. So prepare yourself. Don't get shocked for that. The font and size of the text is slightly different from what Bootcamp and Booster offers, but that's just what I'm telling you from my experience, to just keep in mind that also. So the reason I said the lag, the reason I told you this is the importance of marking questions. So you do not have time to get back from question 30 to 25 by just clicking back. That would take you probably 20 seconds. And you don't have time to get back and find the questions that now you found the answer in the passage. So mark the question, or even label them on the noteboard. Like, if the topic is about the stress, just mark the question on the noteboard and say, like, question 3 was talking about history of stress, and move on. So when you're at question 43 and you find the answer to that question, you just go back directly by clicking on the review button and find that question. The last section, which I really loved it, I was scoring very high on this section. I got at least, I think, 10 30s on this section. I didn't do good on the actual exam. I got 23 for that section. I was so frustrated because I was expecting definitely a 30. And the reason behind it is this is a section, if you have a basic understanding of math, that would make it so possible to get 30. It's definitely not hard. For this section, if you practice a lot, the question will become predictable for you. So if you have the basic understanding, just jump into the questions and start learning the stuff from the questions. And practice same thing as chemistry, practice with minimal writing. So same thing, it's not as easy to write with the Sharpies on the exam. So practice as much as you can to not use pen or pencil when you're doing the questions on bootcamp or booster. For this section, write down the questions that you found tricky. Look over them days and days after. That would give you the trick of the question. That would give you the point that you need to know on the actual exam. And that's the reason I say the questions are very predictable on the actual exam, because you see lots of similar questions. The only thing is the numbers have changed. And I want to take this time to say how representative these memberships are, or any other. I'm not sure about the other memberships, but these two, I found lots of similar questions, and I think I'm not 100% sure I saw one exact same questions in biology, exact same wording, exact same question. So if you know this from me, if you know this from someone who took DAT, you'll pay more attention to every single question and know that this could be the question or your exam. And as I said, one question could worth 3 to 5 points. One question could change your score from 20 to 22, from 25 to 27, or even from 25 to 30. So it's really important. Practice those questions. And one trick which I think helped me was I practiced for that section at the end of my day when I was really tired. And the reason behind this is this section is your last section on DAT, and it's the section that you will start working on it after 4 hours and 30 minutes of thinking, enjoying the stress, and the exam environment. So your mind is tired, your body is tired. So you have to make that stamina for that section. So the correct timing also here is important. You have 40 questions, 45 minutes. I ran out of the time. Don't do that. That was my problem on the exam. So don't do that. And make sure you get to every question. Don't miss any question, because there is no negative points. Even I remember, I think I just chose 2 questions randomly because I had just 10 seconds left. So do that. If you got to last like 2 questions, 3 questions, you did not have time, just choose randomly. Never miss any question. And the marking is important here also, because if you see a question which you cannot solve it fast, just move on and go to the next part. What to do in the last 2-3 weeks? I would say taking the full length exams, which are consisting of the practice tests, these are very representative. Stimulate the exam environment for yourself. Follow the exact timing of the AT. Wake up early. Even wear the clothes you want to plan to wear on the exam day. That would prepare and make the stamina that you need for the actual DAT. Review the entire exam the next day. Go over every single question, no matter you get it right or wrong. Go and read the explanations. You might find an easier solution for it, so that would be really helpful. Go back and study the topic you found yourself weak on the full-length exam. If you found yourself weak on nuclear chemistry, in general chemistry section, go back, look over your notes. If you have the notes, this is the good part for you. That really helps you to review stuff fast, so you don't have to get back to all the videos that would be so time consuming in the last 2-3 weeks. Review the biology every day. If you have Anki flashcard, that's a good point. If you took notes on the biology high yield notes, just go read off that. That would be really helpful, and review the organic chemistry reaction cheat sheet. The way you know how you're ready for DAT, there are basically two ways. Qualitative way is you feel you're ready, you're confident. That is a really good way to understand that how ready you are. But there is another way, quantitative way. I would say scoring around 20 and above in each section in the practice test, or the if your average is around that, you should be fine for your first attempt. That's the accuracy you need. I mean, it's not very accurate, but it's enough accurate for you to decide if you're ready or not. And take this advice from me. If you're not scoring well, if you feel you want to retake it, don't take it. DAT is not an exam for you to just take as practice. It will always stay on your resume. Some schools average your scores, some schools look at your highest, and most of the schools, I think, look at the most recent one. So if you taken DAT before, you want to retake it, that's totally fine. But if you know that you want to retake the DAT, you're not as prepared, don't do that. Don't take the DAT and just reschedule. So these are my score. I just put them as a reference for you guys. It's as you can see, I was averaging 24, which I got 24 on my actual exam. I was averaging 25 on biology. I got 27, 25 on general chemistry. I got 24, 23 as average. And organic chemistry, I got 30. And that's what I'm saying, 23, 30. There's only two to maximum 3 questions different. Perceptual ability, 21. I got 22. Reading, 19. I got 17. For math, this is the section I think I did not perform as well. I got 25 as an average, but as you can see, I got different 30s and I got 23. Same thing for booster. I think you'll be having access to the PowerPoint. If that helps you to just compare and see how the scores relates to each other, that could be helpful for you guys. So these are my first attempts. This is for bootcamp. This is for booster. I don't really like this part, but since it's probably a question for many people, if I want to compare the difficulty of the bootcamp and booster to the actual exam, I would say for one of the sections which people struggle for, PAT, booster, and bootcamp are definitely harder than what you see on the actual exam. And I was surprised of how easy the TFE section or hole punching or angle ranking was on my actual exam. So it's definitely harder. Same thing, same deal for biology and general chemistry. The organic, I felt harder for both. Reading, this is the only part which could be harder on actual exam, and the bootcamp could be easier. So be prepared for that. And math, always almost the same. Bootcamp might be a little bit harder. For the exam day, you know about the importance of breakfast. Have a good breakfast. Bring the snacks you need for that 30 minutes. That is really helpful. Use that 30 minutes. Locate your test center, so be there early. The exam does not sharply start. For example, at 8, it could start earlier if you're there. So if you were there, I remember my exam was at 8:30. I was there at 7:45. I started my exam around 8. So that could be a possible thing for you if you are there earlier. Use the tutorial optional thing at the beginning. That is a really good factor to relieve your stress, get familiar with the computer features, and that is, I think, a 15 minutes time, which definitely use it. Don't spend time on the other tutorials. The section timer is running on those times. You know what to do. The tutorials of, for example, PAT is showing what are the rules of keyholes or that kind of stuff. You know all the stuff from before. Watch out for the time every few minutes. Don't leave any questions unanswered, as I said. So look for the time each 3 to 5 minutes, so to know you're in the right track. And lastly, I want to say it's definitely easier after a while. You're studying for DAT after 1 to 2 months, you'll get the sense that this is not as hard as I thought. Trust me. Thank you for your attention and good luck. I would be more than happy if you guys had any question, you can email me. I would be more than happy to help. And I think now we can go ahead and start answering if there is any questions.
Alrighty, so for the first question, someone just asked you, can you just reiterate, how would you recommend studying for general chem again?
So general chemistry section is a bit different from organic chemistry in terms of it's not memorization. Half of the exam is probably calculation-based questions, so it's
Can you
practice, practice, practice. Um, Booster and Bootcamp both offer a very good videos. Even if you have not learned nothing about general chemistry, I would say the videos are enough for you guys to learn the content. So start learning the content first, do the question banks. Take notes from the question that you are seeing in question bank and found a trick on them, found a point which is interesting for you, which you did not know about. Write that down and look over it a week after. So after a while, you get the sense that you know every stuff, you know every question.
Alrighty, thank you. For the next question, so someone said they attended the UC Davis pre-health conference and they mentioned they found out about the score changes. Do you think the score changes will change whether the difficulty of scoring higher is going to be harder, or do you think it'll be easier to score higher?
Sure. The content of DAT would not change at all. The content is exactly the same. The scoring will change just to because the reason behind the score change is to show more difference between people. So now someone who got 20 now could get two different scores. What I mean by that is now we have more scale. The scale is bigger.
it's easier for statistics basically.
It's definitely
I think it's called like a statistical variation or statistical. It just gives a
that's all.
bigger
And the point with the hardness, it's definitely not harder. It's the same exam. Everything is
same, yeah.
just
They're just changing the numbers. It's like saying, when you take an exam that's scored from 0 to 20, which like if you ever grew up in Europe, that's pretty much like how they score. In the US is 0 to 100. It's just the 100 gives you a larger variation in point spread versus 20. It's just a point. It's just that, yeah. So the content's going to be exactly the same.
And the other thing is you don't get that stress in the right at the end of the exam because you don't see your score right after anymore. I think that's a good thing. It's not the moment that I clicked on the end, that's not easy.
But do you think, like, for example, because I know you mentioned earlier, you can miss two questions and then you can go down significantly. Do you
Yep.
think with now, if you were to miss, like, there's more, I guess, variability, like the range of scores, do you think it'll be essentially easier? Like, if you miss like one question, you won't go down as far now?
Well, the point is not really, it doesn't matter how much you go down because I mean, you'll still need an average of 20. And if that relates to like 450 out of 600, you still need that score. So it's not really, it really some things that help the dental school to determine who is the better applicant probably, but it's not something you do think that makes it easier, that makes the DAT easier or not, but probably you're right. Maybe now if you lose two questions, that wouldn't go as low as if you do that in the 30 scale, but that's not, I think, something you will think about it any much.
So for the next question, which DAT is more difficult, the US or Canadian one?
Well, I know I have Canadian friends here, Canadian friends of mine here, so I think that's a bit controversial topic, but well, I'm not sure how deep the biology and general chemistry sections are in Canadian ones. But based on what I think, since American DAT has organic chemistry and math in addition to whatever the Canadian one has, that makes it harder in terms of the content. But the thing for Canadian DAT is I think you need a higher Canadian score if you want to get into Canadian dental schools compared to American one. In America, in US, you can get in with even 18, 19 in some schools. You definitely cannot do that in Canada. You need at least 22, 23. That makes getting into dental school harder, but the Canadian as DAT shouldn't be harder as American.
The only thing you should worry about is that if you're wanting to go to an American dental school, take the American one. There's a lot fewer dental schools in Canada, and it's much harder. And
Sure.
so, like, doesn't really matter if you. It shouldn't matter to you. You're only going to take the U.S. one because you can't take the Canadian one and only apply to U.S. school. So,
Well, what I want to add here is, so if you were planning to apply to Canada, if you took your DAT, if it was not the score you were looking for, you still have 7 to 10 options in Canada, 7, 10 options in US. University of Mercy, for example, in Detroit, University of Colorado, I think Colorado, or some NYU. I know a few other schools. I think Buffalo also has that. They do accept Canadian DAT, but as Jubin said, you'll lower your chance definitely, because if you take the American DAT, you'll have almost all the dental schools as an option. Keep in mind that some dental schools in US just accept Americans. They do not accept internationals, but for the other dental schools, you'll definitely have more options if you take the American DAT.
All right, for the next question, do international students have to take another exam other than the DAT?
There is no other exam than DAT. You have to have, the only thing about international students, if you're referring to their
TOEFL, I
bachelor
think.
degree, you have to have your bachelor from either Canada or US in order to apply for dental schools. The thing is, for prereqs, you definitely need to do that. You might have a bachelor from a different country, but for the prereqs for biology, general chemistry, organic physics, biochemistry, those courses has to be taken in Canada or US.
Yeah, I think I would just say that if you get a bachelor's, if you're an international student and get a bachelor's from here, you should be okay. I know some schools require the TOEFL exam, but if you have a bachelor's degree, it's just like
Yeah.
it just they want to make sure that you speak English and comprehend in English, which if you have a bachelor's degree in biology or something, you could do it.
Yeah, most of the times that requirement is waived with a American or Canadian bachelor's, but yeah, you might only need to take a TOEFL exam or something like that. But that's rare, I think.
All right, for the next question, someone asked, how did you feel right after taking the exam? Did you feel like you knew, like you were like, oh, I feel good about this, or you kind of like,
Well, I didn't want to talk about that, but what happened in my DAT exam, in the middle of the exam, in that scheduled break, I came back to my computer and there was a note on the computer that your exam was voided and the computer is not working anymore. Contact the DAT administration and you have to like retake the DAT. I was super stressed. And that was the reason I ruined my reading and math. And as I said, I was scoring 30. I was so stressed. I called the person who were working there, the administrator. They came, they clicked on the close button like 100 times on that note. That just got disappeared. But I was so stressed and I ruined my reading and I was not even reading the questions in the reading section. I was just answering as much as I know, but I was not performing well. And I knew that I was going to retake it. I knew that the reading and math was not definitely a good score, and I had to retake it. But after I clicked on the surveys, you have to finish the survey and click on end, and that the score just immediately show up, and I was super shocked that okay, I did not do that bad on reading. My math is okay, and I performed very well on the other sections. So that is a very stressful thing, but I just told you guys this, that the point is Since the actual exam is a bit easier, you might just, during the exam, you might feel you're not doing well, but wait until the last minute to see your score. You might be just shocked. So that's even different from what you get experience from practice tests. So wait until the last minute and be confident. Don't be like me. I ruined my reading because of the stress I encountered, but you guys be prepared for that. Nothing happens. And be confident.
All right, for the next question, how much would you say that the average student spends on materials subscriptions to study for the DAT?
Well, I think I showed the prices for bootcamp and booster. If you get the 10% discount for any of them, it should cost you $400 to $600 depending on the membership you get. If you have the financial base, need-based grants, and if you were able to lower that by 50%, that would be $200 to $300. That is a bit costful process because then you have to apply for register for DAT. That's I think 500 for 540, I guess. So everything altogether costs you around, if you don't reschedule it, costs you around probably $1,000, something around that.
All righty. So for the next question, it's more personal. It's, what sparked your interest in dentistry and what kind of dentist do you want to be?
So the reason that probably the main reason that I planned to be a dentist was my family and the environment that I grew up in. My dad, my cousins, they were very inspiring of this field. I have not yet decided if I want to go to residency or not. I really like oral surgery. That's probably my dream residency if I were able to, but I've not decided yet what to plan for it.
Alrighty. For the next question, someone asked, how can you get faster at the PAT section? I know you mentioned a little bit earlier about, spacing out like or choosing which questions you do first based on like how you feel about them and choosing or like putting the ones you feel the weakest in last. Is there any
Yeah.
other advice you could say?
Sure. I mean, that's just a trick you can do. It's not really that much helping you in terms of the time. It's just helping you in terms of the confidence. So if you start practicing PAT, you keep getting answers wrong. Trust me. If you start working on the keyhole section in the first 2 weeks, you're just getting the wrong answer. That might just lower your confidence and you just throw it away and do not focus on it. Don't do that. Focus on it for 1 to 2 months. Get everything wrong. Don't worry. Just learn the concept, learn the techniques, learn how to do the questions. And after a while, you get the sense of how you have to perform well. And then you see that you are doing good. You're performing well since the practice paid off after a while. You get the technique, and the point with PAT is not learning. I mean, it's not studying, it's just practicing. So if you dedicate an hour, 15 questions per part per section, like 15 keyhole, 15 angle ranking per day, it would definitely help you and you'll definitely get a 20 to 21 easy. No matter how smart you are, easily you can get 20 to 21.
All right. So for the next question, someone asked, again, just what would you recommend between boot camp and booster? Should we study from both or just choose one? And which one did you find more helpful overall?
Well, as I said, for some sections, booster did better. I think for organic chemistry, booster was a better choice. For reading, it was better choice since it was harder. It was more representative. But I would say if you are planning to get one of them, bootcamp probably is better option. But the point with bootcamp is it's more expensive than booster. If you can afford both, awesome. That's probably the best plan you can do. You start and focus on bootcamp as the main source, and then use the practice questions, practice tests, the 10 full length exams that a booster offers in the last month, and add that to whatever you've learned.
All right. So for the next question, during the exam, are calculators are provided, and are we able to use are we, I guess, able to use our own calculators? And then, did the like knowing you only have to like you can only have a basic calculator, did that affect you at all during the exam?
So you're not allowed to bring anything inside, um, not even a jacket. So you cannot have your jacket inside. Um, so that's a very high security exam. You have to empty your pockets. You do not have to have anything, not even a watch or something like that. There will be one calculator button on the math section and no other sections. So you do not have calculator for chemistry. You'll not be provided that. You'll be given two Sharpies and two paper noteboards, which you can write down on them. But as I said, it's not really easy. It's not like a paper and pencil. That's all you provided with. And I think the general chemistry sections does not require you much to calculate the hard calculations, and you can do them in your mind or just write them down and solve the questions. But for math section, you definitely need calculator. And I mean, I personally prefer the actual calculator, not the calculator on the computer, because that's not as fast as the actual calculator, but that's what you're going to be provided. But just practice with that. Don't use your own calculator or your phone, and practice with the one which Bootcamp or Booster offers. They have the same exact calculator that you see on the exam day. Practice with that to get the sense of what's happening on the actual exam.
All right, for the next question, someone says that they took their DAT and they scored lower on their RC and QR than their practice exams. They have no idea how to study for them now because they thought they would do better on those sections. Do you have any advice for what they should do going forward?
Same thing that happened for me. I was averaging way higher on math and reading. I think one thing for these two sections is you're tired. So your body, your mind is not as ready as it was for biology or chemistry section. One thing is we practice them whenever we are tired and make that STEM midnight to just be able to think for 45 minutes, solve questions when we are very tired. So that was one thing I told you guys to just start focusing in this section in the night when you're tired. For math, I would definitely say practice will pay off. So if you do lots of questions and if you become faster, you should definitely be fine with getting a good average score. Some part of it, you have to be smart. I agree. You have to be lucky. For DAT, you should be lucky sometimes in order to get 30, but you shouldn't be lucky to get a 20. 20 to 25 is not based on luck. It's based on how prepared you are. Maybe 25 to 30 is about luck sometimes. But I think practicing a lot for math would definitely helps. And writing down the questions to get the tricks of them. For reading, I think that's the hardest section to get well in a short time. But if you are planning to retake, start from tonight, read the passages, try to enjoy the passages and get the sense of what plan you want to use. If you are sticking with search and destroy, just do that on 20 different passages and get the sense how you have to do them. If you're reading the entire passage, do that. Just practice the technique that you are using. I've heard some students change their techniques many times, even during the exam. That is something which just makes you stressed and cause you to not perform well.
All right, so for the next question about DAT retakes, is there a limit for retakes?
Yeah, there is a limit. You can take DAT up to 3 times. And between each time, you have to wait at least for 60 days. After the 3rd time, you can take it for the 4th time, but with a permission from a advisor from your college, and you need a rejection letter from a dental school. So then you have to apply for it to ADA. They would let you to take it for the 4th time. You can take it for the 5th time, but after a year. So basically, after the 4th time, you can take DAT once per year.
Someone mentioned how many hours do you recommend studying every day? So I guess like what would be your recommended plan? Would it be the 3 months, like 77-week plan, or What?
So if you have a good solid background in your first and second year of college, and if you know the basic stuff, I'm not saying you know everything, but you know the basic stuff, you should be fine with a 3-month solid plan. So if you can make the commitment for a 3-month time frame, you should definitely be fine. The 77 days plan is definitely enough. Or the 10-week plan of booster, that should be fine. But you know, the thing is, you'll realize that when you're almost at the end of the way, when you're seeing your practice test score, that is a very good indication of how ready you are. So if you see the score, if you're doing well, be confident and you should perform well. In terms of how much studying per day, that's a I studied 8-10 hours.
Alrighty, you're back.
Yeah. Okay. I just got cut off. Sorry. Okay. Where did I get cut off?
Towards the beginning, you mentioned just like, if you already have a background and whatnot, that was where you kind of started cutting off.
Yeah. So if you can finish those in the 4-hour time frame, that's fine. You can finish your day by 4 hours of studying. See how much you need the time to finish what you were asked on the schedule, and that's the time you need to study. Mine, as I said, was average 8 hours.
So then the next question is, someone asks, so they're a second year community college student and will be transferring soon. Do you suggest they start studying like now, or do you think that you should, or you like use the winter summer breaks to get ahead? Start because they want to get ahead because they struggle with chemistry and math heavy topics.
I think it's a good plan to early and just study broadly. If you're not good at general chemistry, go back to notes from your college, learn this stuff. But the point is, when you want the AT, you need at least 2 to 3 months solid of studying. You cannot study and pause, go like rest for a week, come back. You need 3 months solid of studying, 2 months solid of studying. So the point is, if you're applying to a 4-year college from a community college, no matter what year, no matter which school you are in, as I told you about the options, if you're a sophomore and if you've taken organics, you can plan to take the AT no matter if you're in a 4-year or 2-year college. But make sure that you have that time frame. You need at least 2 to 3 months continuously to study for the AT. But it's a good thing to practice early for each section, just broadly.
All right, for the next question, someone asked, like, if you know, how important would you say the DAT is weighted for dental school admissions, compared to GPA, medical practice, personal statement, etc.
Um, well, I might not be a very good source for this, but since I'm applying, um, well, I would say DAT is probably one of the most important factor. Having a good score is probably one of the best thing you could show a dental school as a good indication of you being ready for dental school. It's not definitely everything. Having a good score, having a bad GPA, bad resume will probably not get you in, but having a good score, having an average GPA, average resume might get you in. So the point is, so me, now that I got a good score that I know it's higher than average of most of the dental schools, I'm not still resting. I'm still doing my volunteers, my shadowing. I'm still studying for my college. So I think that's something along with your rest of your application. So still focus on the rest of your application, but DAT is important. The commitment to the 2 to 3 month commitment is important. So focus on DAT if you're registering for it and if you're planning to take it. But it's not everything.
Alrighty, for the next question, could you clarify, like if you want to retake the DAT, how do you know which scores are sent to which schools, or are, I know you mentioned earlier, are some like averaged out, So how does that work exactly?
One good thing which a booster offers is it gives you the average GPA, even with the percentiles and average DAT scores of all the US and Canadian dental schools. So that average is probably the best thing, which shows you if your score is high enough for you to get in. So if you plan to go to a school that its average is 21 and you scored 18, you might need to retake. But if you plan to just go to any dental school in the US with 18, you still might be able to get in. So first you have to decide which school you're planning to apply. You can see the averages so easy. Based on those averages, you can decide if you plan to retake or not.
Alright, so similar to that, if you were to retake the exam, are you able to choose which score you want to submit, or is that based on the school?
So if you retake the dental schools will see your old score always because that's all in one application. As I said, the thing with some dental schools is they average. Some dental schools take the most recent, and some dental schools take the highest. So depending on the schools, and it's not clear on their website, if you want to realize how does this process works for them, you have to call their admission. They would probably let you know how does this process work, but they would see your old score. But it's not a bad thing. If you scored bad, if you, for example, scored 18 and the next time you score 24 like me, you are a better applicant than me because you improved a lot from 18 to 24, for example. So that's not a bad thing if you have a bad score on your resume. Just put the commitment to get a good score and finish with this exam.
But
Finish yourself.
but the other thing is I would also tell you that if you, let's say you get an 19 and you're like, oh, I'm going to take it again, and then you get a 17,
Yeah,
that's going to look much, much
yeah,
worse.
yeah,
So unless you're guaranteed that you're going to do better. And so just be careful. Like I know somebody who like did something like that from med school where they had a pretty good score, that a good score. It wasn't like perfect, but it was a good score. And then the second time they took it, they did a lot worse. Then it just really
yeah.
it set their plans back for a while.
That's the worst
Because
thing.
yeah, because they will look at all the grades, and some people say, "Oh, we take the best one, or we super score them and stuff like that." But the bottom line is that you know they're gonna be able to see everything.
Right.
It's kind of like well, I shouldn't say that, but it basically sticks with you. It's kind of like herpes. It's a,
Yeah, I was afraid of getting 19. I was wishing if I either getting 20 higher or 18 and lower because 19, 20 are scores that are tricky. So yeah, if you score lower, definitely that's a very big red flag.
yeah.
Alrighty, so for the next question, it's are all the questions on the exam multiple choice or are some free response?
Yeah, it's all multiple choice.
So for the next question, did you experience burnout while studying? What is your advice to avoid burnout?
Well, I did not experience that much, but because I started from a month before I started the practice tests, those gave me a good indication of how ready I am. So that made me confident and that made me strong until the end. I think if you're not feeling as well as ready, if you're feeling burnout, just give yourself even a few days rest, come back again, start again, study again. That for DAT, you can boost your grade so fast, you can get the confidence so fast. So I would say giving yourself a rest of 1 to 2 days, it's no problem at all. Do that, that would definitely help you.
The only thing that I would just add that it's kind of like not if but when you are going to get burned out. I mean, that's given, you know, um, that's given to the fact that it's going to happen. But the most important thing is that finding ways to, um, to kind of get out of it, or not so much get out of it, but coping mechanisms, so that even if you get burned out, you can get out of it. Getting out of that may be, going for a run, lifting weights, whatever makes you happy. And that's really important.
All right. For the next question, someone asked, what type of passages and topics can we be expected to see in the reading comprehension section?
So the passages are basically science passages, but it varies a lot. So you could get a science of a law of something in biology, or you could get a science of an insect, or you could get science of HIV. It varies a lot, and that's one part you have to be lucky that you get a passage which is enjoyable for you, but that's something out of your hand, so you cannot do anything about it. But it should be a science passage. And mine was 3 science passages. One was about magnesium, and the other two, one was about blood pressure, and the other one I don't really remember.
For the next question, someone asked if you have any advice for first generation college students and getting into dental school.
Well, the questions are becoming so hard because I'm not an expert in those areas. Yubin is definitely a better option to answer this question, but um, I would say start planning ahead. If you know what you are doing, if you plan when you want to take the AT, if you have a schedule for yourself, from the first day I started my college until now, I knew when I want to take the AT. I was planning when to transfer. I was a community college student, and also I transferred from Canada, so I knew what I was doing. Draw a plan for yourself and know what you want to do, and reach your goals step by step. Like decide make some short-term goals for yourself, reach to them, and then take the steps to the highest point you're looking for, which might be for dental school.
I'm sorry. So I would say the first gen college student, I don't know where you're at, if you're at a community college or 4 year school. If you're at a community college, build community. There's, MESA program, there is EOPS, there's a lot of the programs, and they've done like these. This is not like some hooey that, um, you know, some hooey thing that's out there. There's actually like been studies that I've done that if you're in programs like MESA, EOPS, Rio, um, all of these, all of these programs that are out there, that are out there for you, accept, like participate in them and apply and ask about them, because I think like you can't do this alone. Like it's not a even when you're going into your training and grad school and residency and working, like you got to be able to like depend on other people um to help you do that. Now, nobody's going to help you sit, on an exam, because that's you got to take that out of your exam, but you end up building community, so people that could support you, that are like-minded, that can encourage you, build you up, and those types of things. So I think like those programs, like at community college, are there. At 4 year schools, there's also MESA programs. There's a host of other programs that are out there to help you. But the most important part of it is build community. And then the other part of being first gen is you don't know, because you don't have anybody to help you. And so finding mentors, and that could be in some of the shadowing that you do, people that have gone before you that can help you and could give you advice and support and also encouragement. And then there's also sponsors, which I think the difference between mentors and sponsors, a mentor is someone who gets to know you, who's gone before you and can give you advice. A sponsor is someone that could vouch for you. So a sponsor is someone who writes your letters of recommendation, or you say, "Hey, I'm interested in this program. Can you help me out, or can you give me advice?" And they would go and do that. They would, help you in those types of it. So I think those are all really important. And I think that and I know that a lot of people coming through starting college or through COVID and remote schooling and everything else, much harder. But the whole part of this academic process is having community and and being there around each other. And the nice thing about like the internet or the modern times is that, we get to connect in very powerful ways, but also you need to have people that are around you in that community. And I think Matt could talk about more about someone who, is at a 4-year school and, what things are out there for, first gen students.
I mean, there's a lot of, different resources available. I mean, definitely, I mean, depending on the size of your school, like for example, I go to a big public school, in California. So there's like the pre-health advisors may not be necessarily while they can specify with a lot of general information, it may not be as specific. So there's definitely a lot of resources out there, as Juven was saying, with the internet, where you can find advisors to help you on your journey. And a lot of the teachers I've found, throughout my 4-year journey have been very great in, providing me resources. Like I've talked with one of my professors currently a lot about, what should I do when I want to apply, advice for writing my application and whatnot. So I think finding those mentors, as he was saying, within and then, using the resources that are available to you, like, advisors and whatnot, are all extremely important. And then at like, I'm at UCLA currently, there's a wealth of like pre-health students available everywhere. So my roommate is one, for example. So we can talk about stuff like this, figure out what we want to do, study together. We take classes together sometimes. So I feel like, finding that community, finding, mentors is very important. So that's what I would say for advice. Alrighty. Do we have time for another question?
Amirparsa, question.
Sure. Oh, you're asking me? I have time. Sure,
Okay.
no worries.
So for the next question then, is there any study groups you found or know of, or did you just do like independent study?
Definitely a good study group is Bootcamp Facebook group. Definitely add yourself. There are lots of good info. Learn the AT process. Half of what I learned was from this Facebook group. Um, you can ask questions. There is a Facebook group for Booster also, but the Bootcamp Facebook group is a bigger, more members, so that would be a good option if you want to. If you have any questions, you could type there. They would respond. It's a good, friendly environment.
Yeah.
So
The other thing that I would just tell you is that um, you could create, a community to study together as a group too, and that's, you know,
Sure, you can find your peers even in in the Facebook. You can type in "I'm studying." If anyone wants to join, sure, you can do that. Or even your school. Your school have definitely a pre-health advising place. You can find people who are in your track and study with them.
there's really like clubs and whatnot too.
Yep, definitely.
All right. So someone asked about tips for letters of recommendation. So do you have any tips? Also, do you think it matters whether you get it from like a chemistry professor, physics, biology?
I think more matters that how good the letter is. They are not going to see how famous the chemistry professor is, or if it's from a chemistry professor or biology or biochemistry. It's not as important. Jubin can probably answer this question better than me, but as far as I learned and know, it's more important that how good the letter is than who wrote that.
yeah, I mean, I think the best thing about it, and we're doing a workshop on letters of recommendation, but ultimately a letter of recommendation, like I said, we just talked about mentor, sponsors. Sponsor if somebody gets to know you really well and is vouching for you. So, so if you know, the worst letter recommendation you could get for anything in life is, oh, I've known Matthew Real, on spring 2020, fourth quarter, he was in my chemistry class and he got in the 94 percentile. That's like the worst letter you get.
Yep.
But if you get the letter recommendation, and some of them do ask you for academic, it would be, oh, I've had Matthew in my spring 2024 class, and he was someone that always showed up on time, but I saw him struggling in the middle of this quarter. He came and talked to me in office hours, got to know him, got to know his story, got to know a lot of the obstacles that he's gone over, and he worked really hard, and he did really, and was able to, you know, and do well in my class. And that could be a physics or chemistry. So it doesn't really matter. Like it's kind of like saying, obviously if you hate physics, you're probably not going to connect with that physics professor. But or you could hate physics and got to meet this professor and they really supported in you and you passed the class and you did well, but you still hate physics. So
All right.
that's kind of the long answer.
For the next question, what kind of shadowing did you do and how many hours? Also, what kind of community service?
That's for you.
Oh,
I'm not
oh,
a I think
hmm,
he's froze again.
I think he did. Um, just really quick. Oh,
Oh, he
alrighty.
came back on. Okay. He
So the
froze again. Sorry.
did
Sorry.
you hear so the question was just what type of shadowing did you do if you have done any, and also what kind of community service have you done?
I have shadowed so far two dentists. One of them was an endodontist, and the other was a general dentist for a few hours so far. But I have to definitely do that more as much as you can. It's a very good environment to see what you are really going to do and even see if you really like it or not. Even you can do the shadowing before taking the AT. You might even change your mind after shadowing. But I loved it. It was a good experience. What was the other question? Community service. I work in a club which they um recover foods from the cafeteria of the school at the end of night. The leftover food they bring it to the schools that people who cannot afford the food. It's kind of the food recovery process and giving the food to people who cannot afford them. And I worked somewhere else in a lab as a volunteer thing. It's not really community service, it was just a volunteer experience. But I think if you want to start the community service, you can start with the clubs and then find people, get the connections, and see what really works for you and what's the best fit for you to find a job. Definitely.
Alrighty, for our final question, at least as of now, is biochemistry a necessary course to take for the DAT?
No, not at all. You might see few topics which are related to biochemistry, but you do not need biochemistry at all for the AT.
The
Um,
only thing, the only thing that I would make sure some schools may require it, so make
Yeah.
sure you know what's what.
I think most of the dental schools require you biochemistry without lab as a prereq for dental schools, but not for DAT.
Cool. All right. Well, I think we are done. We don't have any more questions, so we could all go and I start work. So, all right, everyone. Hope most of your questions were answered, and everyone have a beautiful weekend.